Yep, it's loading now.
Okay, so then we'll be back in non-public. We'll say at 7:23. While in non-public, no votes were taken. And we can get back to our agenda as my dog tries to jump up with me here. Sorry, folks. So, okay, next on the agenda, we have the consent agenda, approval of school board minutes from November 19th, November 28th, and December 3rd, as well as the monthly enrollment report. What's the board's pleasure? I'll say it a different way. I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. And did anybody see any adjustments to make in the minutes or whatnot?
I did not.
Yeah,
That looked fine. They were very solid.
I agree. I thought they were good. So thank you, Ms. Trito, for getting those for us, and appreciate it. So roll call through. Brian Winslow is a yes. Stephanie Arroyo.
Yes.
Jen Fry.
I'm going to abstain.
Great. And Jessica Boudreau.
Yes.
So that's 3 yes and 1 abstention. And we are ready for the principal's report.
All right, good evening. Our report is on page 21 of your packet. We provided a purchasing update. We had a pretty tight timeline with the CARES 2 funds. We had to have all items received and out of the box being implemented by December 30th, and we were able to do that. It was a little close with a few of the tech things, but we did it. And then in terms of the money that we had identified to spend this year in order to reduce next year's budget, those purchases are in process. In terms of the NEASC update, after we submitted the report, we did receive the final report from the visiting team. I will be sending that to the school board tomorrow via email, because I'm sure you have nothing better to do on a long holiday weekend than read that. And then after you have had a chance to digest it, there are some requirements in terms of sharing it with other stakeholders, certainly families, the town, the Department of Education. So over the next few weeks, we have 60 days to do that, but I wanted to, the staff have seen it and have had a chance to digest it for the last week. We'll let the school board do the same, and then we'll share it more publicly. And then at the next meeting, we can share our action plans in terms of what we'll be doing with that report. The calendar committee met about a week and a half ago. I did email, except to Jennifer, the school calendar around 6 o'clock. So hopefully you have that in your email. I can go over, it's fairly typical to our normal calendar. We did make a few changes. And then I did have a question for the board in terms of your preference. So I'll go over, does everybody have it? I guess first, I'll give you a second to pull up your email if you need to.
I have it.
Brian, could you forward it over to me?
Thank you.
Yes, I can do that right now.
Thank you.
I got it. So the major changes that we made from typical practice, normally we do 2 teacher workshop days the first week of school and then 2 student days. Given the recent change in the collective bargaining agreement with teachers, where they now have a full day dedicated to classroom preparation, that only left administration with 1 day if we kept that normal structure. And we have a lot of required professional development to do at the beginning of the year, and we didn't think that we could do that in 1 day. So we made 3 teacher workshop days in that first week, with Friday as a no school day, and then students would start with a full week on Monday, August 30th. In order to get that 3rd teacher workshop day, that first week of school, we removed what is typically a teacher workshop day, the first or second Friday in October. There does tend to be a regional conference on that day, but it sounds like 1, attendance has diminished over recent years, and 2, that is likely to be virtual next fall. And so Ms. McDonald felt comfortable in eliminating that as a teacher workshop day. And then we moved parent conferences by a week. This past year, we had done it the first Friday in November. We moved it to the second Friday next year, just so that kids could have a nice 4-day weekend after Veterans Day. Those were the major changes. Everything else is pretty standard. The question I have for the board is, knowing that the town is now using the school more for voting purposes, we'll need to account for that for security issues. We really should not have a traditional school day with kids in the building while voting is happening. So we could either, at the board's preference, make that day or those days no school days, or we could revisit remote learning. So I welcome the board's input on how to handle that.
Ooh, I mean, so far out at this point, it would be nice to think that like remote learning is a thing of the past, but it's also kind of nice to think that we've learned how to do it well, and it's an option for us that I don't want to just discount. So, I mean, I kind of feel like either way could be okay. What do you, I mean?
I think I would lean toward keeping it as a remote day, just because, I mean, hopefully we will be long out of that. But it's good to keep it in practice. You know, so I think having those couple of planned remote days are good. Kind of where I would land, I guess.
I guess, yeah, I'm kind of leaning that way too. The other thing I'd put in is that there will potentially be other things that come up where being adequately able to do remote learning would solve some problems. So it could potentially come up in other situations. It's probably a skill we don't want to lose. So if we practice it a few times a year for sure during the elections, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
And I would agree with that. One thing that we would like to do this year is have some snow days. Hopefully we won't have too many, but we'd like to not lose the continuity of instruction and be able to maintain our hybrid, well, right now, hybrid schedule by having a remote day on a snow day. I would imagine that would also be something we'd want to consider moving into next year, just so we're not pushing into the late June. And so that would, provide multiple opportunities to keep that remote structure in place as needed.
Sure. Yeah, I think that'll definitely, be a discussion if we get to a point. I think everyone values an occasional snow day here and there, but if we have a month where we're looking at like 6 snow days in 1 month or something, that we can get, we could consider doing remote days. Or I just threw that out as a random number, obviously, as an example, but right, I think that's something we could potentially use them for. So
I agree.
So what I would suggest, since I just got this to you tonight, is that you all take the next couple of weeks to look at it. Sorry. And then we could revisit it at the first real meeting in February, because the first meeting tends to be the deliberative session.
Right.
And then that will give me time to figure out what those dates are and amend it. And then you can let me know if there are any other changes that you think need to be made.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to the committee. We had Taryn Bassett as our parent representative, and then Linda McDonald and Sharon Plord, who helped me find all of the many mistakes that I made in the creation of it. So that was very helpful, and I appreciate them. And then we wanted to provide a hybrid update. The return from winter vacation went strangely smoothly up until this week anyway. After Thanksgiving, where we had to abruptly go remote for part of the school, we were all sort of waiting with bated breath after Christmas vacation ended, and everybody came back, and when we were able to fill the absences that we need to and cover everything. So that went well. The kids were happy to be back in the building. And then just in terms of numbers, we haven't seen much change. There's been some individuals changing between remote and hybrid, but there hasn't been any significant statistical change in the numbers. We're still at about 18% of students working fully remotely and 82% attending in hybrid. I do have additional information in here in terms of our thinking about the move to phase 5, but looking at the rest of the agenda, that might be better suited to discuss under new business, if that's okay with the board.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, are there any questions about this principal's report?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we can move on to the business administrator's report.
Evening. So the only report I have for you folks this evening is, as requested, a look at FY 2021 year-end projections. And I know that was emailed late or earlier this week. And so I didn't know if it made sense to screen share the copy I have, or whether go through, if everybody has received the printed or the emailed copy, we can do it that way either.
I have the emailed copy, but I don't mind screen sharing either. I think most of the public who's here is on the phone, so I don't think it matters too much. What do the other board members want to do? Actually, Glenn, do you mind actually screen sharing? Because that way Jen, who just joined, I could forward her the email, but that way she can just see it on the screen. So.
All set. Mary had sent it to me, but either way is fine.
Okay.
I guess I just need to get screen share capabilities, and I can share the screen.
Steve, could you make Glenn Waring a co-host for a moment?
I just did.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Okay, does everybody see the screen?
We do, yes.
Okay, so the first page we're looking at is the summary by function code, with column K way out here being the final projected balance. Column H is the expenditures that have actually happened through December 31st. The encumbrances are either one of two things, either known encumbrances with purchase orders or payroll liabilities, or as I went through the lines, kind of looking at what has been expended through the year and putting in an estimate of what will be spent for the second 6 months of the fiscal year. So if we scroll to the bottom of this summary, we're looking at an operational savings of roughly $368,000 at this point. And obviously, these are my best guesstimates, so just know that as we look through this. Moving to the next page, we start to get into all of the individual line items within each function or department. And I don't know if we want to go through line by line, if there's a specific question or comment, or stick with the summary page. What's the best way for us to discuss or review any of this?
I think personally, I feel like sticking with the summary page is probably adequate. I don't know if anybody has a specific question on a line though, but I was more concerned with just where we've added a few things this year. I just wanted to project out, as we said, like as we have additional stipends and whatnot, and it looks like we've got that from the summary page. It looks like we can see those. So, but Stephanie, Jessica, Jen, if there's anything specific, please speak up, of course. Okay, I'll do this then, I guess, just for a little bit of an exercise. Can you just walk us through, like, specifically the stipends for the before care and the additional planning, the before and after care and the additional planning, where we can find those in the budget and how we were projecting those out?
I don't know. Is Linda still on the call? She might have a better idea as to what department or code or function they were expensed to.
They're under co-curricular salaries.
Okay. Right. And co-curricular. So
there we go. Yeah.
So I looked at it that we had expended about $8,000. It was $15,000 within the budget. And I best guesstimate said, okay, we expend all of that in the next 6 months, where would we end up? So that's why there's a $15,000 estimate of additional expenditures there.
Okay, do we, either Jocelyn or Glenn, do we, for all of the additional stipends that we have this year, and I'm thinking specifically, we were providing additional planning time for teachers who are teaching both in-person, face-to-face, and remote learning. And we're also providing stipends to staff members who are providing before care because of the early bus run and after care because of the late bus run. Do we have a weekly amount that's costing us, or a per day amount that's costing us?
I don't have it this evening, but we're sure we can get that.
Okay, to me, that would be, I would love to see that, just because I want to know, in this model that we're in, and with a bus shortage, what it's costing us, just to make sure that we can track that out. Like, if we continue to do this for another 10 weeks, what we could predict that those costs to be compared to if we continue to do it for 12 weeks or whatever.
Okay.
And rather, I think that would give us a little bit more of I would feel more comfortable with an exact, projecting the balance if we had those kinds of details. So.
Okay, we can get that.
Okay, awesome. Does Jen or Jessica or Stephanie, does that sound like what you would like to see too, or do you have anything additional?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I feel.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah, great. And I guess just to summarize, I feel really comfortable with, what we had budgeted for and what we had planned on, but then things that have come up since then. I know we're obviously tracking COVID costs and we have other funding for it and whatnot, but I just want to project out to the end of the year, with everything that we've added, just to make sure that we're still good to go, or if we need to make some adjustments so we catch those before it becomes too late. So.
Okay.
Okay, does anybody have other questions for the business administrator's report? Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Waring. I think we're good with screen sharing, and I appreciate it very much.
Okay, let me stop the share. There we go.
Great, and we are ready for the superintendent report.
Okay, Steve, if you'll make me a co-host so I can screen share.
Yep, I just did.
Thank you. Just take me 1 second. The PowerPoint is always a little bit slower than anything else. Okay, and while it's scrolling, I will say that we do not have any personnel requests tonight. We don't have any nominations, resignations, or stipends. What I do have for you are a slew of updates from the town, the state, and the federal level. In correspondence, we have a request from Northwest Evaluation Association, and they have requested access to some of our student data in the aggregate, not individual student data. This is so that they can conduct a comparison across the state of New Hampshire and also nationally. And none of this would involve the disclosure of individual students. And I do recommend that we would grant this request. And if you have specific questions about this process, I know that Dr. Skolin would be able to answer those probably better than I can.
Okay, so this is, I know we always report out to the state of New Hampshire DOE anyways. They list, this disaggregated information on their website. So I don't see any issue with sharing it. I guess it's just NEWA wants for their own kind of analysis across the country. They just want a sampling of data.
Yep.
They are trying to look at past historical student achievement and growth measures in comparison to what they've seen this fall, to be able to make, number one, projections, but also to make recommendations in terms of not necessarily remediation, but how to look for achievement gaps, and in particular, what groups of students might have the greatest achievement gaps, to be able to then turnkey some of their research to schools to be able to know how to mitigate those achievement gaps and slower learning growth projections.
Okay. I personally don't have any objection. Other board members, how do you feel about sharing disaggregated data with NEWA?
I have no objection.
No objection.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Dale Transportation has responded that they are willing to accept the counter that I proposed to them on the contract extension. And I do recommend that the board would accept the extension for 1 year and then negotiate a new contract going forward into the next fiscal year.
Okay, I make a motion to accept a 1-year extension as negotiated with Dale Transportation. Would anyone like to?
I'll second.
Okay, so I see Jessica Boudreau. So does anybody have a question, or are we pretty much understand the contract?
I'm fine.
No question.
Okay, Brian Winslow is a yes. Stephanie Arroyo,
Yes.
Jennifer Fry,
Abstaining?
and Jessica Boudreau.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 3-1 with 1 abstention.
Thank you. Another contract that is coming due, and it is an automatic renewal on January 19th of this year, is not, there isn't an increase proposed in the waste management contract. If there were to be an increase later in the year, it would only be if there was a change in the consumer price index, or if the facility were to increase their rates. But neither of those is anticipated. So you don't need to take any action. This is just for the board's information. I do have a letter in your packet, in the board packet on page 33. It is and Glenn, I didn't realize you were going to be here with us tonight, or I would let you handle this. So if y'all have questions, you can ask Glenn. But the auditors have submitted a letter of engagement to conduct the annual audit. This is Plodzik and Sanderson, the same folks that you all have worked with for years. And I do recommend that the board would authorize Mr. Winslow to sign the letter of engagement.
Okay, we've used them for a couple of years. I think they've done a good job. Of course, there are other audit companies out there, but other board members, do you want to just stick with what we've got, or do you, the other option really I would be to shop around, I guess.
No, this sounds sensible to me.
Okay. Then I will make a motion to direct myself to sign the agreement with Plodzik and Sanderson for the annual audit.
You actually, just a point of parliamentary procedure, you're going to need someone else to make that motion.
Okay, got it.
I make a motion for Brian Winslow to go ahead and sign the Plazek and Sanderson contract letter of engagement for the FY21 audit.
I second that.
Okay, thank you, guys. Brian Winslow is a yes. Jennifer Fry,
Yes.
Jessica Boudreau,
Yes.
Stephanie Arroyo.
Yes.
Okay, so that's 4-0. Thank you. And thank you for educating me, Dr. Henson. I'm still always learning, so I appreciate it.
Okay. Updates from the town of Northwood. There is a request before the board for the town Board of Selectmen to use the gymnasium and some additional overflow space for the town's deliberative session that would take place on Saturday, January 30th. And they have requested, if we allow this use of the space, that we would also provide some technology assistance. And I do recommend that the board would permit that use of the space. I'm unsure if y'all require a board vote when you allow an outside group. I would recommend that we do this without charge to the town.
Yeah, I don't think we require a vote. Though I'm not sure. I mean, in the past, this has been at the Co-Brown gym. Obviously, it sounds like that's not available to them this year, so they'd like to move it here. I know we'll be doing our deliberative session here as well, just a few days afterwards, and then we've also talked about doing the March election here. So I think it would make sense it would be easier for people in the town, less confusing to put everything in one place. So.
Okay. And as Mr. Winslow just mentioned, and you do need a vote for this, if we permit the town to conduct the March voting day at the school, I recommend that the board would declare that March 9th would be a remote learning day so that we can maintain security and safety while the town is using the premises.
Right, and to clarify, remote for staff and students.
Yes.
Remote, completely remote for everyone. So do we need a vote? We do need a vote, you said, on this. So
Yeah.
I make a motion to make March 9th a fully remote day for Northwood staff and students to accommodate the voting.
Second.
Okay, any discussion, or are you ready to roll call through?
Ready.
Okay, Brian Winslow is a yes. Stephanie Arroyo,
Yes.
Jessica Boudreau,
Yes.
Jennifer Fry.
Yes.
So that's 4-0. Thank you.
Okay. Just a quick update. The matching funds letters have gone out for the school lunch program. We do get a small amount every year of matching funds from the state. The majority of reimbursement we get from the United States Department of Agriculture and the National School Lunch Program. But I thought it was interesting that everyone might like to know that we served more than 21,000 meals during the past fiscal year, and we received just under 1,900 in state matching funds. This was a graphic that has been circulating widely on social media, but phase 2 is when school and childcare staff are eligible to get the COVID vaccine. And Commissioner Edelblut did confirm for me that substitute teachers are considered school staff, even though they're not full-time or permanent part-time employees necessarily. So we will certainly, Linda will make sure that we reach out to all of our substitutes and encourage them to get their vaccinations as well. I plan to be vaccinated and to have it photographed, and I'm going to tweet my picture. And I challenge our school board chairman to do the same. We put that on the SAU and the Northwood Twitter.
Sure. I'm not on Twitter, but I don't mind taking a picture of myself getting vaccinated. So
okay, if you send that to us, then Jocelyn and Steve and I can get that out on the Twitter feeds. Thank you.
It looks like it'll be a little while before I'm ready, but in the absolutely.
Okay. We also received this today from the commissioner, a graphic that is on the SAU Twitter feed identifying areas with priority appointments. And this is not just for school employees. This is also for students in public schools or any schools who are symptomatic. They can go to any of these locations and they can get free COVID testing. And again, I put it on the SAU Twitter feed, and I circulated this to all of the principals in the SAU to make sure that the information goes out to families. And there is a link in that announcement that they can click on, and it's the online appointment that they can make. This is a wonderful benefit. Federal update, we learned that Congress did not extend the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act sick and family leave benefits after December 31st, and it is at the school board's discretion whether to grant these leaves. The attorney for the SAU recommends if the leaves are granted that they both be granted or neither be granted. There is not an economic incentive to the district to continue granting the leaves. And then this is just some technical detail that if they were extended, it could lead to an additional 12 weeks of leave time because employees could have combined that with FMLA. So that is for the board's information.
Okay.
And then the good news is that the superintendents have been told by the Administrators Association, they have done a pretty thorough analysis of the upcoming aid package that's going to be rolled out. And they are expecting that districts will receive roughly 4 times as much federal money as we received in fiscal 2020. Excuse me, calendar 2020, for expense on COVID relief work. Now that's money coming in that will immediately go out, but we won't be under the gun to spend it in 30 days. We will have the full year to be able to expend the funds. There are additional categories that we'll be able to spend funds on. One that caught my eye right away is that there is going to be funding specifically for addressing learning loss. And we talked in the COVID team meeting about that really needs to be a focus for us in the springtime. And I know that our director of curriculum is going to be leading our work in that regard. And with regard to our COVID situation, as of today, we have 5 staff and 3 students who are in quarantine or isolation. Our statewide community transmission is starting to fall a bit. Our test positivity rate is down below 7.5%. We're still in the substantial range for new cases, but I take heart in the hospitalization rate continuing to remain very low. And if you notice, these are stoplight colors for a reason. Your new cases are red because they're substantial. Your hospitalizations are green because they're low. And your test positivity is yellow because it is medium. And so that's why they color code them. In Rockingham County, again, we have gone below double digits and we are down into a little under 8.7% today. Our hospitalizations continue to remain very low. Our last case reported for Northwood School is showing as December 30th. We are reporting, they just haven't updated our statistics. With regard to school impact right now, our student absenteeism, it continues to be very low. but we do have a cluster of cases in the school, which puts us at a medium range. But because of the nature of that cluster, it has created a critical situation with our ability to conduct school operations. And so for that reason, if y'all remember, anytime any of these three categories moves to a higher level, the whole rating goes to a higher level. So our school impact right now is high. So looking at our decision-making matrix, which is not an absolute, it is a guideline, but I think it's important to note that when your school impact is high and your level of community transmission is substantial, then the state recommendation is that remote is the best learning model. And given the situation that we are dealing with right now with a severely strained operational capacity, I do recommend that the board continue the remote learning for everyone, not just for the students, but staff and students until Monday. Jocelyn, remind me what day that is. I don't have my calendar in front of me.
Monday, January 25th.
Monday, January 25th.
Okay, so that's through next week, and this is a time for people in quarantine to go through the quarantine point, and then we'll be able to safely provide a safe staffing levels and whatnot at that point.
Yes.
Okay. And then I think the other time we were in this situation, not too long ago, we were talking about if there's any cohort, like we had K1, 2 that could still come in. Do we need to do this for the full student population, or is there some students that we could, address their needs in school safely?
Mm-hmm. We do feel comfortable that we can address the needs of a small cohort, and that would be our NEC students.
Okay. So, I mean, it sounds like that's kind of really, we want to get anyone in that we can. So the next students, it is a small cohort of students, but at least it's better than nothing. It's definitely better for those students if it's possible for them to be there. Other board members, do you feel okay about that?
Sounds good.
Okay, and do we all agree with the recommendation? Obviously, if we can't have school safely, we can't have school safely. So
Yes, I agree.
okay, I guess that's.
And just to be clear, I'd like our students who participate in the NEC program to continue to be remote tomorrow, so we can make sure we have time to adequately prepare for them, and then they would attend school next week.
Okay, after Martin Luther King Day on Tuesday. Okay. And then everyone else the Monday after that.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. That's what we'll do.
And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Okay. Steve, I just want to give you a heads up. I just had a message from Shane Wells. It sounds like he's going to try to get on soon. So just keep an eye out for him if you would. And then anybody have questions for Dr. Henson about the superintendent's report? No. Okay. We can move on to policies. And do you, Dr. Henson, I think we had tabled these last time because I think you had some input on some of them. Do you want to, if that's correct, do you want to talk us through these?
I can certainly do that. We are in first reading, correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Just finding them in my.
All right. While we do that, I will make a motion to move policies DGA, that's authorized signatures, DK, that's payments, checks, and manifest, DKA, that's payroll procedures, EHAC, that's electronic digital records and signatures, to move those 4 to second reading. And that's, I think it starts on page 38 in our packets.
Yeah. Yes, there is a graphic on page 38. On page 39, this is the policy on authorized signatures.
Well, just hold up a second. So just technically, can we get a second just and then we
Oh,
can.
sorry.
No, that's okay.
I wasn't listening.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So the motion by Brian Winslow, the second by Jen Fry. And now we're in discussion. Thank you.
Okay. All right. On page 39, policy DGA, this is the policy on authorized signatures. And this basically the main change here is that the superintendent is going to be creating internal controls. And we added language, think that we added language. Oh, I know what it is. Electronic signatures are the main change because electronic signatures had not previously been part of how we normally do business.
Okay.
We didn't have board policy EHAC in place.
Okay.
All right. Then on page 40, the policy with regard to paying checks and manifests, we this is where we made a change that the treasurer can delegate approval authority. This is in the next to last paragraph, to the business administrator, as long as the business administrator is an employee and not a contractor. I told the policy committee I feel strongly that only employees of the board should be should hold that level of authority.
Okay. Obviously, while we're on page 40, we'll the second paragraph, we'll have to fill in the blanks there to move it to second reading, or when it comes back in second reading.
Yep. And I don't have any particular recommendation on either of those two. I think either one is fine. It's just what does the board prefer? I think it makes sense for it to be the building principal or assistant principal, but the board can certainly designate whomever they like.
So guys, do we want to have 2 signatures or do we want to have 1 signature? That's basically it. I think it's probably prudent to have the first one, dual signatures from the building principal and the assistant principal, and we can start with there. If we change our mind in second reading, is that okay with other board members to just pick that first option?
Yes.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll do that for now at least.
Okay. And then on page 42, your payroll procedures. I don't believe that we had any major changes. This is just a refresh from the School Board Association.
Okay.
And then on page 43, the last one, and it's pretty extensive in its definitions of what constitutes an electronic record, what constitutes an acceptable electronic signature. But essentially, it is the board formally saying, even when it's not an emergency, we're okay with using electronic signatures and keeping records in digital form.
Okay. And that's one I know we had worked on a few years ago because we would get off cycle with the manifest and when our board meetings were. And it's something we had, I know we had implemented, but obviously it's really the nature of how we do that has changed dramatically in the last year. So
Yeah.
that all makes pretty good sense. So Do any board members want to make any additional changes at this time? This will, Jen, you probably know this, we're moving it from first reading to second reading, so it will come back one more time, so we could love one more shot at all of these to make changes if we wish. But did anybody see anything that they're uncomfortable with or want to change at this point? Okay, then I will roll call through. Brian Winslow is a yes. Jessica Boudreau,
Yes.
Stephanie Arroyo,
Yes.
and Jen Fry.
Yes.
Okay, so these move into second reading 4-0. Okay, thank you, Dr. Henson, for that. Appreciate it. Our new business, first up, our general budget discussion of our timeline. The budget committee held the public hearing on the school board budget last night. That went smoothly. They also held the public hearing on the town, and then the 3 districts, the Water District, the Cove District, and I think the Lagoon. So that was last night, went smoothly for the school. And our next issue with the budget timeline is the deliberative session, which we have scheduled for February 4th, I believe. That's that Thursday. I had a little bit of correspondence with the select board member, Hal Kreider, who's working on planning for the town deliberative session. I think Dr. Henson was meeting with him and other members as well, because there's definitely interest to do with how the town does things and how the school does things. We have a lot of the same issues, obviously, with the pandemic. So a number of things came up that I have to share with the board and ask for input on. First of all, sorry, my phone's ringing, but I think we had technically scheduled the deliberative session to start at 6:30. Can you guys hear me with that? I'm sorry. The town will start theirs at 6, and that's kind of customary. Do we want to just bump hours up from 6:30 to 6? And I kind of remember doing that last year as well. And then we always forget because we start at 6:30. That's what we're used to. So other board members, are you comfortable with moving the deliberative session for the school board on February 4th up to 6 o'clock?
That's fine.
Yes.
Okay, so we can plan to make that change on the calendar, and we'll have to share that. The second thing, as they're making these decisions, I was invited to be there. I think they're meeting at like 11 o'clock on Monday mornings or Tuesday mornings or something. I cannot be there at that time.
Monday mornings, yep.
It would, if there is a board member that could be available Monday at 11, it would just be good to have someone from our board in that discussion, and we could delegate them to make decisions on, basically just on the logistics of how we're going to run the meeting during a pandemic. But I did share that was the difficult time for our board typically, because we're all working. But is there any chance that anyone is available Mondays at 11 for the next couple of weeks?
I could
am
be
not,
available, but
unfortunately.
not this coming Monday. Although it's a holiday, actually.
Yeah. Okay. If that's okay with you, if you're other than this Monday during the holiday, for the Monday after that or other meetings, if we're all okay with it, we could designate Ms. Boudreau as our representative and to get board input and again, it's just to get the logistics of the meeting going, and Dr. Henson has been there too. So I can include you. I'll pass your email along for scheduling purposes, and hopefully they can figure it out and include you.
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay. And obviously if you can't if things come up, but I think having someone who can try to be there, I think is helpful. So is the board okay with that?
Yes.
And remote is an option, right?
I think they are.
Yes, they're meeting remotely.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I think I see Shane. Well, I see your name here. Shane, have you in our meeting now?
I have.
All right. Welcome. I'm glad you're here, and I'll remember your name when I roll call through votes. So.
Cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so that's to the next one. There is some correspondence from the lawyer. We always have an attorney there. Do we want an attorney there this year? I would like an attorney there. And do we want, are we comfortable with an attorney joining us through Zoom at the deliberative session? Which theoretically I don't have a problem with. I think we're proficient in communicating through Zoom, but if we want to request someone there in person, I think we'll be there in person, or at least some of us will be, but some people will be remote as well, so. Any input or doesn't matter? Okay. I'll share back. I got that from Mary at the SAU. I'll just share that, yes, we would like an attorney and we are comfortable if it's through Zoom. And then the last thing that I had about that for now, we do a presentation to the community on the budget. In the past, it's been the board chair that presents that presentation, prepares it and presents it. If it's okay with the board, I would like to request Stephanie Arroyo's assistance, just because I'm always so impressed with her graphic abilities to make things look good. So if Stephanie, if you're okay, if I share like a PowerPoint presentation with you and we can work on that together, as we can. I don't think it'll be another meeting or anything. It'll just be some online work. Would you be okay helping me out with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. And is the rest of the board okay giving us the authority to prepare a presentation for the delegate assembly?
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Okay. And then Dr. Henson, before I move on from that, is there anything else in the meetings that has come up that we have to deal with? Those were the notes that I had.
No, you've covered it.
Awesome. Great. New business B, phase 5 learning model. We had asked at our last meeting just to keep this discussion moving, to start to identify what the barriers are and what we would need to do in order to bring students in safely for the 4 days in and 1 day remote model. That would be phase 5. And Dr. Henson, do you have any input for this discussion? Or?
Sure. I'll talk just a little bit and then I'll let Ms. Young continue the discussion. I do feel confident that although we're dealing temporarily with a cluster situation, with a staff cluster, it is an unusual situation, and we do have the testing positivity rate is starting to drop somewhat. If we get through the surge safely and we are looking at going into February break with being able to be back in our hybrid schedule, I talked with our administration and our COVID response team, and our consensus is that we feel that we could certainly mobilize to identify the specifics that would be necessary to move from an AB hybrid schedule into a 4-to-1 flex schedule. And I think it's going to be in the best interests of the children. I know that the staff are eager to be able to spend more time with their students, and looking at the experience of our neighbor districts in Stratford and Nottingham, which are both in a 4-to-1 flex. Stratford has been in the 4-to-1 since August. Nottingham is going into their second month in 4-to-1, and neither of those schools has experienced a dramatic impact in terms of safety. All 3 school systems in the SAU are within just a few cases of each other, of having about the same number of cases. So I feel confident that we would not experience anything out of the ordinary of what we're seeing in those districts.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. I'm other board members, obviously, if you do as well. I think we're all in agreement that we want to go in that direction. It's in the best interest of our children, and we want to do so safely. And I'm glad that it's worked out in Nottingham and in Stratford. I'm curious about what our unique situations are. Obviously, we have 3 bus drivers. I don't know how many if there's that much of a shortage in Nottingham and Stratford. So that to me, that if we're capping bus ridership at 26 students, that seems like an immediate barrier that we have to break down and work through, because we have to do double runs now when we have less than half of our students in. If we go to having all of our students in, it seems like we would need at least 3 runs to accommodate all of our students with that. So I think we have to solve that problem. Probably I don't know if there's more.
I think that's the biggest barrier we have is transporting the kids. What we have in the other 2 districts, they don't have the shortage, but they do have they don't have the shortage of drivers, but they do have the restrictions on ridership. And we do have a lot of families that are having to drive their children that are not particularly excited and happy about that. But that's kind of part of the cost of being able to get them back into the building.
Okay. I guess a little bit further, my understanding is that as a public school, all public schools have to offer public transportation to all of their students who would want it.
If a student lives more than, I'm trying to remember, it's 2 miles or 5 miles. There's a limit on the requirement that transportation be offered. It's a geographic limit. And I can't remember in New Hampshire if it's 5 miles from the school or 2 miles from the school that we do have to provide transportation in that case. The school is not obligated by statute to provide the transportation within that geographic limit.
Okay. I guess so. Other board members obviously unmute and speak up, but I think we'll probably want more information on that before I would feel comfortable. At least I think personally, we want to make sure we're doing the safety. Other obvious barrier to me is physical distance within a classroom, because when we were looking at our numbers to come back to hybrid, we were discussing going directly to phase 5, and one of the barriers was there's a couple of classes that have 20 students in each class, and that there's physically not, if we have 20 students and the teacher and potentially a paraprofessional in there, that we simply don't have enough room to maintain the CDC recommended physical distance. So is that another issue? Am I correct in that? Is that another issue that we have to, another barrier that we have to address, or is there a solution to that?
It is a barrier. It's actually a bigger barrier than when we had talked about it before. All summer and fall, when we were talking about bringing all kids back, we had really been assuming that about 20% would stay remote. So with 80%, we had a couple grade levels where it was an issue. We're now looking at about 99% of kids coming back if we're only providing remote instruction to those who are medically exempt. So that creates a challenge at 6 grade levels. One of the other things that I think we'll need to account for is fluctuation in enrollment. As we open up more, I think some kids who have already withdrawn to go to private school or homeschool are likely to come back. That could, of course, be offset by kids who are currently attending, choosing not to continue to attend because of more people being in the school. So we don't have a solution to those spacing challenges yet. I think knowing or having a better idea. I mean, obviously, we're never going to have a concrete number because enrollment fluctuates regularly, but just having a better idea of what we're looking at in each grade level would help us with planning.
Okay. So those are the 2 that we discussed earlier, and it sounds like those are still 2 issues. I'm completely in favor of having the administration try to work on those. You know, obviously we would like to get to this 4-to-1 flex eventually. Other board members, if you have input at this point, you know, go for it. But those are the two that just jumped out immediately to me because we've discussed them before. So I feel like we have to solve those problems before we can move to that phase. But
Meals are also meals and snacks, keeping kids 6 feet apart. Our gymnasium can accommodate, I have a typo on my report. It says 56. It's actually 64 students can fit into the gym. We currently have 4 lunch periods that have multi-grades. We really can't have any more lunch periods without starting breakfast or starting lunch at 9 a.m. and ending at 2:30. So there's not a single lunch period where we can fit all of the kids in the gym. To have lunches in more than one location would then require more adults to supervise, which we don't really have enough duty staff as it is. So that's a challenge as well. Certainly something that we can look at and think through, but you know, I am in favor of doing this. I don't have any great ideas on exactly how to do it quite yet.
And we'll be able, one of the things we can do with the increased federal funding that we'll be getting, we could look at possibly hiring some additional lunch monitors and hold lunches in locations. It's not a perfect solution, but I think we can do some troubleshooting and some brainstorming and figure out.
yeah, I'm all in favor of creative solutions if we can make them work. I think that's great. So I mean, yeah, I'd love to continue to work on this for sure. I don't know.
I'd just like to echo Mr. Winslow's flags, especially the one around physical distancing in the classroom, or echo the concern and really being able to follow those guidelines to keep school, students and staff safe and healthy. For me, it feels like a non-negotiable. If we can't do that, I don't know how we can, in good faith at this point, try to work around that.
The one thing I was thinking about, I mean, I was listening to a Governor Sununu's press conference today during my commute, and they're going through the phases. And as you had shared, I think they're in phase 1B at this point. And at phase 2A, that's when more people obviously would be able to begin taking the vaccine. As we get to the point where where all teachers have had adequate time, I mean, at that point, I don't know if the CDC guidelines change for, I assume that they would be relaxed if you're talking about a population that has been vaccinated. I think I would like more information on that too, but I don't feel, it feels weird to kind of try to pick a date or anything like that at this point, because the conditions on the ground are not there, I think, to be safe. But it's something I think we all definitely want to work towards. And I completely encourage the creative solutions. If they'll work, I'm all for it. So I guess that's just maybe something I would like more information on too, is as vaccination rates go up and our population becomes eligible, if that changes guidelines and whatnot. So.
Okay.
Do other board members have any questions or thoughts on the phase 5 model? Okay. Moving on, the other new business, we have the delegate assembly. We have to vote on these resolutions. But first, I think we need to pick, I think Shane is our representative to the delegate assembly, at least on paper, but I want to make sure, Shane, that still works with you. So in our packets on page 47, that's where the resolutions start. The delegate assembly is on Saturday, January 23rd. Shane, are you still able to be our representative to the delegate assembly?
Yep. And it's Zoom too, so it'll be super easy.
Okay, perfect. And thank you. I think we all appreciate you taking a day on Zoom to hang out with all the school board members across the state. It's really wonderful.
It's a hoot.
I'm sure that it is. So the resolutions that I have, it starts with number 7 in my packet. Did we, I don't know if they just skipped around, or do you know, Dr. Henson, were 1 through 6 omitted on purpose, or those ones that we need to consider as well?
I believe, if you'll tell me what page you're on, I just want to make sure I'm looking at what you're looking at.
On the board packet, I'm on page 47.
Okay. Mary is the one who put this part together.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that items 1 through 6 are not specific resolutions.
Okay.
So if I remember correctly, 1 through 6 is when the delegates are there and they vote on new board members and stuff like that. So
Perfect.
and then it jumps to proposed resolutions afterwards.
Great. That makes sense. And then I mean, either way, we'll vote on all these. So that we'll make that assumption, and I will. I'll double check what was mailed to me, and then if there's anything else that I see, but it sounds like that's probably what it is. So, okay, resolution 7 was submitted by the Conval School Board. Do you want me to read through this one, or just the whereas and whereas, or maybe we'll just do what the resolution is, the resolved bit? That says that the state must guarantee every school district reasonable reimbursement for whatever COVID-19 expenses are required to follow reopening guidelines set forth by the State and Center for Disease Control and Department of Health and Human Services and the Environmental Protection Agency. We must ensure a statewide school reopening that is safe, responsible, and equitable. And the New Hampshire School Board Association does not, directors and board of directors does not support that. How does this board feel?
Oops, sorry.
Jen, do you have a copy of these in? Okay.
Stop.
Shane, you're being censored or something, I guess.
I'm cooking dinner. Sorry, and my timer just went off. Sorry.
It sounds very delicious. Okay. When I first read through this, I thought this sounded reasonable. I was in favor of it. How do other board members feel?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it.
I'm also in favor of it.
Okay. Shane, I can get this to you if you're busy putting out a fire, but we are in favor of resolution 7. Resolution 8, also submitted by the Conval School Board.
So Brian,
yes.
So for voting it, so you guys support it, right?
We support it, yes.
All right, I'm just gonna. All right, you can go to the next one.
Okay. For number 8, this is a resolution. It's called Last Mile Broadband, and I'm just going to skip down all of the rationale stuff to the resolves, just in the interest of time, because we've all read through these. I believe that the state seek to provide viable financial solutions and funding models to assist municipalities in completing the true last mile broadband internet networks throughout their towns, or establish a regulatory framework that requires providers to complete the networks so that the broadband internet access is available along every public way in the state. And I personally am also in favor of this.
Me too.
I am as well.
Yes.
Okay, so Shane, for number 8, we are in favor, yes. Okay. Also, Shane, if you're, I've got these written down. I can catch up with you after if you miss one.
No, I got it. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Good. Resolution 9 submitted by the Raymond School Board. The resolution to amend continuing resolution number 6 to read, NHSBA supports reinstituting full school building aid funding to state level funded levels greater than state appropriations prior to the 2011 school building aid moratorium. The New Hampshire School Board Association Board of Directors does support this. I personally would like to support this as well.
Yes.
Agree.
Agree.
Okay. We're in agreement to support resolution number 9. Resolution number 10 submitted by the Monadnock School Board. Resolution, the New Hampshire School Board Association supports school districts that promote equity-based inclusive education, which is widely accepted concept that calls for accommodations in general education classroom settings for students who have unique learning needs on the basis of sex, gender identity, race, religious creed, color, marital status, physical or mental disability, national origin, economic status, familial status, sexual orientation, health condition, or native language. The NHSBA Board of Directors, they support alternative language. You want me to read that? The New Hampshire School Boards Association supports equity and inclusion in all aspects of education. NHSBA supports adherence to all anti-discriminatory laws, rules, and statutes, ensuring that no student is excluded, discriminated against on the basis of sex, gender identity, race, religious creed, color, marital status, physical or mental disability, national origin, economic status, familial status, sexual orientation, health condition, or native language. Does the board, I mean, personally, I think the proposed language from the NHSBA is a little bit slightly cleaner. I have a hard time seeing much of a difference materially, unless you guys are picking up something I'm not.
So Brian, if I could just jump in. So usually what happens with these during the voting is that the who's the district, Monadnock would probably rescind their motion and just go with the alternative language. So if you support both, then I could just write that down in my notes. So either one they pick, then we'll just go with that one. Usually they rescind it and they say that we'll go through the alternative language. So you can vote on both if you want.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And that's, I think, what I would like to do, because whichever way the delegation wants to go is fine with me on this one.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay. Sounds like we're in favor of either of those for number 10. Number 11, submitted by the Monadnock School Board. The New Hampshire School Boards Association supports the concept that the state of New Hampshire should define the calculation of inter-district charges when students are tuitioned to an alternate district. The NHSBA Board of Directors does not support this. Personally, I don't support this either, but how do other board members feel?
I don't support it.
Their rationale, if you read it, is, at least the NHSBA, is that tuition should be defined locally at the local level. Whereas this resolution is, I think they said, as they understand it, they're looking for like a single rate for tuition across the state, which, if I understand that correctly, I don't support that. I do think individual schools and municipalities should set their own tuition rates.
Agreed.
I agree.
Okay, so we are, I think, agreeing to not support resolution 11.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so we do not support. Resolution 12 submitted by the Oyster River School Board. NHSBA values and respects student and staff privacy. New Hampshire state law should enable school to require students who attend classes remotely to participate through video when enabling technology is provided. Schools should also provide tools that protect the privacy of the location and other people in the environment when the student is remotely learning. And then again, the NHSBA Board Executive Committee does not support this. Their rationale is essentially they're prescribing a very specific remote Zoom-like feature for students, and that they don't want to limit school districts to one platform. I tend to agree with the NHSBA on this, that the whole state should not be forced into following the same platform.
Agreed.
I agree too.
Yes.
Okay, so it sounds like we are, as a majority, agreeing to not support resolution 12.
Brian,
And yes,
I don't think that that's not what this resolution is asking, that the whole state be required to use the same platform. Basically, what I've talked to the superintendent in Oyster River. He and I had a phone call the other day because he wanted to get my thoughts on it in order to share with his school board. What this is they're wanting to mandate that if online instruction is provided, it must be live and force the student onto the camera during live instruction. That's what they're asking for. Not that everybody would be using the same platform. I am strongly against that. It is not a research-based best practice.
okay. Thank you for the clarification on that. I misunderstood. So again, I personally don't think I would support this resolution as you just explained it. So.
Same here.
Okay, other board members, are we still in agreement to not support now that we have a better understanding of this resolution?
Still agree.
I agree.
Okay, I still agree to not support resolution number 12. Thank you. Resolution number 13 was submitted by the Nottingham School Board. And obviously this one hits kind of close to home. There's two things you have to decide on this because it was submitted, it looks like 2 days after the final cutoff, or 5 days or something like that. But the Nottingham School Board opposes changes in the IDEA allocation calculations resulting in funds being dispersed directly to the school district in which the child is registered in towns which do not have high schools, and not to the student's residence. The Nottingham School Board calls for immediate return of prior method of calculations for IDEA federal and state funds, as well as maintaining this commitment in the future to keep any and all funds distributed to the town's student's town of residence. So this one we've talked about locally, of course, because students from Nottingham attend Coe-Brown High School. Coe-Brown High School. So the IDA funds come through the Northwood School, and then we have, directed our grant procedure and stuff to return those back to the town of Nottingham. And that's obviously the right thing to do. They're going to their students, are clearly intended for those students, but this would come up to any school that doesn't have, any town that doesn't have its own high school in their town, which is a lot. And I think it just makes more work for grant department for an SAU, and it just leaves more room for money not to get to students that it's intended to go to. So I would like to support this. And then the second half of this is the delegate assembly will have to decide if they even hear this because it was submitted a few days late. I would also like to have them hear this one. So I would like to go yes and yes on both of the questions on number 13.
I agree, Brian.
Agree.
Okay. And I applaud our sister district for putting this together. Obviously, where we're in the town that it, you know, kind of on the receiving end. It still is a headache for us to deal with, I think. But you know, good for them, and we'll support them on this one. So.
I do want to note that the Stratford School Board has signed on as a co-sponsor for this resolution.
Is it too late for us to sign on as co-sponsor?
I can ask Barrett, Christina.
Cool. I would love to do that. I guess I was out of the conversation loop as this was going on before, but would the rest of the board like to sign on as a, you know, unified district here?
Yes, I think that would be a great approach.
Great. Dr. Henson, if it's possible for us to, I think we would like to, so.
Okay, I will ask him.
Okay, and then I think it's just one more, resolution 14 submitted by the Manchester School Board. Proposed resolution 1, school administrative units should be held harmless during the 2021-2022 fiscal year for differentiated aid. Part 2 of that is differentiated aid for fiscal year 2021-2022 should be based upon free and reduced meal numbers from fiscal year 2019-2020. And part 3 of that is the New Hampshire School Boards Association will make this a priority in its lobbying efforts during the upcoming New Hampshire legislative session. And again, this one was submitted late. Dr. Henson, do you have, oh, and they, I guess they're not saying anything about it, but do you have, is this, I mean, I think differentiated aid, this is talking about like Title I funds and whatnot. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, this actually goes to the issue of the number of free and reduced meals drives a lot of our federal allocations. And it's been difficult to get the documentation with schools being remote so much of the time. And so our numbers this current year are going to be a lot lower than they were in previous years. And so this is this is a way of formalizing that concern. The legislature is aware that it's a concern, and the federal government is also aware. This is a national issue that the American Association of School Administrators and the National School Board Association both are lobbying on.
Yeah. In summary, my understanding is because we're in this emergency situation, all students are eligible for free lunch regardless of economic
free lunch and breakfast.
And that has de-incentivized people for applying for free and reduced lunches, which is what calculates Title I allocation. So I am I'm completely in support of this, and as well as the statement that they make this a priority in their lobbying, because this is a really potentially a terrible situation where many people across the state who are eligible for Title I services would stop receiving funding for them. So
the House Education Committee met this morning, and I sat in on that. It was on Zoom, and they had a lengthy discussion about it. And the point was made, and Stephanie probably knows more about this than I do with the way that it's done in New Hampshire, but there is now the ability to certify people for food stamps and those types of benefits. The state already certifies them. So why would we make the schools go through the extra step? And that's been an issue for several years. A lot of states have asked the same question. But I do think we're going to see legislative action. We'll probably see federal action on this.
Great. Well, I would like to support this and also to support the delegate assembly for hearing it. So
I agree as well.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. Shane, so we're yes and yes on 14.
Okay.
And I think that's it for delegate assembly. Is there anything else that anybody has regarding that? I don't imagine you do. Okay, in our parking lot, school board newsletter, we had one recently. I think our focus right now for communications is on the deliberative session, so we can just keep that on hold. We're constantly discussing school safety, and it's, recently it's in the context of disease mitigation, obviously, but any other safety concerns as well as they come up. And then strategic plan goal, I think we're holding off on that one for now. Our first meeting of the month is going to be our deliberative session. So second meeting of the month, hopefully things will be quiet down a little bit. Perhaps we could discuss another goal at that point. And if you guys are okay with it, I'm perfectly comfortable leaving it up to whichever one Ms. Young wants to talk about. Is that okay with board members?
Sounds fine.
And is that okay with you, Ms. Young?
We had actually prepared as part of my report that got set aside for this meeting to speak about curriculum and instruction, and we can certainly do that when it's deemed appropriate and timely.
Great. I would love to put that on to our February meeting, regular February meeting. So, and thank you for, this meeting's just really long because we cut a meeting out to try to save a night. And so I appreciate you holding off on that. So, okay. So that's parking lot timeline, February. It says update of 6th grade science camp with school board. I think it's probably not happening this year, science camp.
I think it's unlikely, but I will put out some feelers.
I guess we're still in January, and I was looking at the February one for some reason. Obviously, we're preparing for the deliberative session. I jumped back to January, guys, sorry. Preparations for presentation to the budget committee. We've gone through the budget committee. They've held a public hearing. So that's done. Discussion of athletic coaching program, that's kind of on hold. We've been kind of loosely talking about fall sports, winter sports, and not moving on that. Discussion of preparations, warrant articles. So I feel like it's gone through public hearing. We're prepared with that. We'll just have the deliberative session.
We've had our DRA review.
Oh, can you give us an update on that? So that was the warrant for essentially the COVID relief fund. That's not what we're calling it, but do you have anything to share on the DRA? There was a request, for those of you that don't know, I ramble on and talk too much, but to be a little bit more concise, there was a request from a budget committee member at our December work session on the school budget and warrants to get an opinion from DRA about our warrant to set up a contingency fund for COVID and other unexpected financial burdens or however it's worded. So if you have an update from DRA, I'd love it.
I don't feel like, I think Mr. Waring probably could speak better to that. I just know we received it back from DRA.
Mr. Waring, are you?
He's still on the
He's
call.
coming back.
Yep.
Am I unmuted?
You are now, yes.
All right, perfect. I'm not sure what happened to my video. I don't know if you can see me. I can't see any of you.
We can hear you.
All right, perfect. So yeah, so all the warrant articles were submitted to DRA last week. They were all approved. One minor tweak that we had to make, but all was fine the way they were written. And they have been submitted. The MS-27 form has been generated and submitted to the budget committee for their signature. And you all saw the default budget. You did all, or I believe 3 of you have signed. So we do have that all set. So there was no issues with the articles as they were written.
Okay, wonderful. That's good news. Good to hear. So I think we are all set then with discussion of warrant article preparation. It sounds like we're ready to go. Discussion of school calendar with the board. We had that earlier. Thank you, Ms. Young, and we will be putting that on our agenda for our February meeting. Prepare for public budget hearings. Ms. Arroyo and I will work on presentations. I will be sharing that with Dr. Henson and members of the SAU as well for input. Deadline for petition warrant articles. I don't think we're doing any of those, and I don't think there's any unique impact award applications. It would be great if there were. Maybe as we start, if we can get into phase 5, as we're hoping to do in the spring, then maybe there'll be some more interest there. Looking at February, we're talking about, well, science camp. Don't know, it's up in the air. Deliberative sessions on the 4th, so that'll be our first meeting. Board feedback on non-CBA staff, board evaluation policy, BA, summer school planning, review of unique impact award, and review of champions lease and summer programs. So we'll be talking about those things in February. Committee updates. So I shared the budget committee met last night and that went smoothly. Were there any other committees that could report out at this point?
The wellness committee met on the 8th. And well, is that a committee I update on, Ms. Young, actually?
Sure.
Oh, okay. It was my first time participating, so sorry. I feel like I just jumped in. I'm sorry about that. It was my first time meeting, but it was a very well-run meeting, and there are some action steps that we will be taking, but really it's reviewing our current wellness policy and operationalizing some of the things that are included in there and creating metrics. And using a tool from the CDC for creating baseline data around wellness. I'm sure I'm missing something, but we met on the 8th and it was very well run.
Awesome. Jessica, thank you for attending that. That's one that we've talked about. We, by policy, need to have a board member there. We've struggled with scheduling, so I appreciate you making the time, being able to be there. Are there any other committees that met? Okay, future agenda items. We need to review and probably vote on the calendar. And this, we're talking, I guess, for the agenda for the 2nd February meeting. The first one will just be the deliberative session, unless something does come up. We have in the past call the meeting for the board, half an hour before or something, just to take quick votes. But as far as we know, if nothing comes up, we're talking about February. So the calendar, is there anything else that came up tonight that I didn't write down that we need to discuss? Okay,
Probably just phase 5 COVID update to just keep that on the calendar.
Okay, so we'll just progress made on those barriers that we identified tonight. Phase 5 progress. Okay. And I'm sure other things will come up between now and then. If they do, please email me or Dr. Henson and we'll get them on the agenda. Okay, February 4th, it says on our packet that that's a regular board meeting, but that is the deliberative session. And we decided this evening to begin at 6, which was a request from the chair of the select board. February 8th is a joint board meeting that's been through Zoom. That's at 6:30. I do believe the Northwood and Nottingham combined board, which we call the preschool governance committee, that committee will be meeting at 6 on that evening as well. And then February 18th is our next regular board meeting after that. That's at 6:30. Hopefully we will be hybrid. We had hoped to be hybrid tonight, and then obviously we couldn't. So that's my intention, unless obviously we can't. Okay, we can do closing public comment. There's still a number of people here. Mr. Robert, if I could just ask you to facilitate closing public comment, we'll do that now.
Sure thing. We'll make this a little easy. We have 3 people in the audience. The 3 people in the audience, if you have a public comment, if you could hit *9 to raise your hand. We'll do this a little smoother this time. *9 to raise your hand, and we'll let you go ahead and speak. And if you speak, please make sure you state your name and your address, and you can go ahead and give a public comment. So if anybody has a public comment, go ahead and please raise your hand, and I'll go ahead and ask you to go ahead and unmute by hitting *6, and you're all set. Phone number 42, you are all set to go. Phone number 42, go ahead and unmute. See if I can unmute you. Yeah, ask to unmute. Okay. I'm trying to. Phone number ending in 42. You raised your hand. Did you have a public comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Chrissy Berry from 40 Stratford Road. I had 2 quick questions. The first one being, I know school pictures were next week. I was wondering if there was an update or a time change for that. And the second one was, I didn't catch what organization or whatever it was that would be able to attend school next week. I didn't know if you could clarify on that.
Okay, great. I can clarify. Students who are in the NEC program, there's a small cohort of students within Northwood School that we can staff their needs adequately. So school will be open for students in NEC program. And Ms. Young, have you rescheduled pictures yet for next week, or has that not come up yet?
No, I mean, this decision was just made tonight, so I've not yet had a chance to do that, but we'll work on that tomorrow and get information out to families as soon as we can.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Berry.
Is there any other public comment? If there is, please hit *9. If not, I think that's it.
Okay. Would any board member like to address the board?
Yes, I just wanted to quickly thank the administration. I noticed that the sign outside of the school had MLK on it, and last year as a community member, I emailed about it, including that, and I appreciate that it's been a changed policy and it's reflected in all documents that we're naming Martin Luther King Jr. So thank you for that.
Much easier with the new sign to fit the whole thing on there.
Yep, looks good. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other board member? Okay, I will close public.
As an ex officio board member.
Yeah, of course.
I want to, on behalf of the administration and the SAU, I want to welcome Ms. Fry. I have heard just tons of wonderful things, and we're delighted that you have joined the board. I told Mr. Winslow that Mr. Byrne and I are doing new board member induction for one of our other school districts that has a new member, so we'll reach out to you and offer the same.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we do have a need for one more quick non-public. It'll be just the board and Dr. Henson. And then I don't anticipate any votes, so we will just adjourn from there. We won't come back onto live stream to adjourn. But I will make a motion for non-public under RSA 91A32 section C.
Second.
Okay, so that's second by Stephanie Arroyo. Ryan Winslow is a yes. Jessica Boudreau.
Yes.
Shane Wells.
Yes.
Stephanie Arroyo.
Yes.
And Jen Fry.
Yes.
Okay, so we will go into non-public under C at 9:01. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Night.
Let me just turn the stuff off and I'll give you a host.